Hello, everybody. Welcome to my ASMR video. So I decided to go pretty low budget here, and I'm going to do a record collection, soft-spoken ASMR. So, if you don't know me, I'm kind of an audiophile. I really like music. My cat likes music too. Alright, let's jump right into this. So my first record that I have here is OK Computer by Radiohead. This is my cat's favorite album. I've cried relentlessly to this album with my cat. This is one of my favorite albums. Not by them in particularly. It's one of them. I'm more of a King of Limbs Radiohead fan, and I really liked In Rainbows. It was a great album. The album's pretty cool. It comes with lyrics on the inside, but you know, Tom York, he's a pretty cryptic guy. He had to rearrange the lyrics into some hieroglyphic babble that I have no idea how to read. The back's pretty cool. Alright, on to the next one. Next, I have Mac DeMarco's Rock and Roll Night Club. As you can see here, the goofy Mackie DeMarco is putting lipstick on his lips. I thought he thought that'd be pretty quirky, I guess. I don't know. It comes with a booklet too. The vinyl is actually in like a nice beige. And yeah. It's a pretty nice record. It's one of his more experimental records. It's his first album, I believe. I think it's co-produced by Homeshake. But yeah. Moving on. Let's see what we have here next. Next we have Melody's Echo Chamber. This album is actually co-produced by Kevin Parker. Sorry about that. My dog is kind of insisting on my attention right now. This album's pretty groovy. It's got some very crunchy, distorted guitars in it. The back's pretty cool, you know. Nothing too special about the record itself. I mean, physically, it's just black. But yeah, the dude from Tame Impala helped produce it. They were actually dating at one point. Kind of sad they broke up. Let's see what we got here next. Next we have The Flaming Lips, Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots. I discovered this album in I think like 2013 in the summer, and I fell in love with it since then. I would move on to listen to The Soft Bulletin. It's also a great album by The Flaming Lips. A very tasteful, electronically, sonically driven record here. It's got some pretty cool, distorted, whacked out, spacey psychedelia on here. Which would be pretty influential for Tame Impala. Speaking of which, let's move on. The next record I have is the live versions of Tame Impala. I really, really love this record because I kind of grew out of my Tame Impala phase in like 2017. I mean, I still listen to them, but there's nothing more nostalgic than the live versions. I mean, it has a cool, like, aerial view of the band playing, and I saw Tame Impala with my girlfriend in, like, this year in the summer, and They were pretty good, but they used to be so much better live. Pretty good album. I think that their live versions are a lot better than, what he does in the studio. But moving on, we have MGMT, Little Dark Age. Little Dark Age. The album itself is pretty cool. It comes with this avant-garde Picasso painting in the side of it. Pretty weird stuff. I don't really have too much to say about this record. I liked it. I thought it was pretty tasteful. There's a pretty good Ariel Pink collaboration on it. It's pretty good album. I thought it was pretty good. Pretty experimental, caked in a bunch of synth and some weird dark bubblegum pop on there. Really nice drums and percussion. Really liked the song When You Die. That was a pretty cool song. Next up, we have Mac DeMarco, Eastside Days. This was what really got me into Mac DeMarco, other than Home Shake and Makeout Videotape. The inside is actually pretty cool. I think that's him and his girlfriend. Looks like a pretty cool analog recording setup here. If you look closely, that's he's got some pretty cool synthesizers, a really nice bass guitar, some really nice just recording equipment. I would love to have this set up. I don't know what that says. I don't know if you can zoom in on that. But yeah, he likes to, for some reason, he just likes to play like these very worn out guitars. People think that Mac DeMarco uses a chorus pedal. He used to, but he actually uses vibrato, and he would play on these detuned ass fucking vintage guitars from the early 70s, and I don't know what guitar this is actually. He's got a piece of cardboard under it. The pickups look pretty worn out. Alright, moving on. Next up, we have Oddments by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. If you haven't listened to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, you're probably better off not listening to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, or else you'll remain a virgin. Just kidding. It's a pretty colorful album. I love this band more than anything. They're a very versatile band. They have all kinds of psychedelic experimental sounds. It's a really nice record, man. It's actually purple. I don't feel like pulling it out. I'll just let it be. But yeah, this is their more attempt at a lo-fi, kind of a really lo-fi, tripped out, trebly, kind of psychedelic sound. Their percussion is always just so awesome. There's a lot of panning in this album from the left and right stereo channels, and I think it's pretty cool how they make their effects pop out. It's a pretty immersive album. Moving on, we have Floating Coffin by the OCs. Of course, if you're a King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard fan, if you're an avid listener like me, chances are you probably dig the OCs. I really liked this album, especially the album cover. It's pretty neat. John Dwyer always has some pretty cool artwork. I don't think there's anything particularly special about the disc. Oh wait, yeah, it's red, blood red. It's a pretty cool album. Pretty good hard rock psychedelia. Next up, we have Face Stabber by the OCs. This is my favorite one. This one opens up with a song called The Daily Heavy. The Daily Heavy is like this really tripped out, surfy, boogie nights kind of vibe to it. It's really cool. It's got this effect in the background that just permeates the entire song and just bleeds through the mix. It's really nice. It's a really wacky album. The guitar work on it is phenomenal. A lot of use of fuzz pedals in this album. Yeah, one of my favorite OC's albums. In fact, one of my favorite records of all time. Let's move on. Next, I have the OC's Castlemania. This one is kind of similar to what King Gizzard was doing during Oddments. This one's more of a really I wouldn't say it was a low budget album. It just sounds really low budget, like you're listening to it through a beat up tape. Pretty cool art. I don't know if that's his child submerged in all these toys, but it's a pretty cool album. I believe the record in this is actually purple too. Yeah, it's kind of like a bluish purple. But I really enjoy this album and the artwork on it. Conceptually, it's a pretty cool album. It's got some nice jingly 60s tunes on it. Next, we have Fishing for Fishies by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. This one was not my favorite, unfortunately. I still bought it anyways. I happened to catch it at the record store. It's got some nice songs on there. It's got the Bird song. It's got Fishing for Fishies, Cy Boogie. It's got, let's see, Real's Not Real. That was an alright song. I don't know, it was more kind of blues driven, kind of like I wouldn't say rockabilly. Kind of more backyard forest bluesy, like you're going on a trip in Louisiana on a speedboat. Kind of had that vibe to it, but still psychedelic at the same time. There's no real way to describe the bending of genres in this album. They got Hantayomi, the little robot here, the Cy Boogie. Oh wow, I just dropped one of my records. Next up, we have Pink Floyd's Animals. I mean, this is one of my favorite albums of all time, conceptually and from an artistic standpoint. Honestly, this is actually my favorite Pink Floyd record of all time. Yeah, it's just a really good progressive rock album. Many might not call it progressive rock. It's kind of psychedelic. I would say there's some elements of psychedelia, especially in how it's produced and all the animal sounds just caked in the mix. And the nice guitar leads. David Gilmour's guitar solos are absolutely phenomenal in this album. But moving on, you know what? I'm not even going to display Currents by Tame Impala. You know what? Yeah, I am. Currents by Tame Impala. It was really cool when it came out, I really loved it. Let It Happen is a masterpiece. I can't lie. It's a really good album, but I just don't find myself listening to it too often. No offense to the Tame Impala fans. I've got Reflector by Arcade Fire. A pretty groovy, I'd it's very reflective too, as you can see, kind of like a holographic screening effect on it when it was pressed. The inside's really cool too. A very nice record. I love the artwork on it. It's just so simple. It's just a statue, but it's got some tripped out, like dubby Jamaican sounding. Like Flash Bulb Eyes was a really cool song. It's like a reggae dub song, but more trippy and psychedelic. Normal People was a good song. The song Reflector was pretty good too. One of my favorite Arcade Fire albums. In fact, probably the only one that I ever gave a fuck about, honestly. Let's see. Of course, I have Dark Side of the Moon. This is my girlfriend's, actually. This is a very old record, so I don't intend on playing with it too much, but I don't really need to say a lot about this album. It stands for itself as one of the greatest albums of all time. I would have to agree. And it's a very good album. I don't listen to Pink Floyd all that often, but, you know, it's still pretty great. Let's see. I have Firstborn by the rapper Idea. This is a really good album. I don't feel like taking it apart, but it comes with a bonus disc. Not a disc, a record, you know. And let's see if I can get it out. Yeah, that looks nice. One of my favorite hip-hop albums of all time. A very immersive, very percussive album. I really like the beats on this album. Very eerie and very dark and very existential Ideas music. One of my favorite rappers. Alrighty, had to kind of cut this video into part 2. I have Odd Entrances by the OCs. This was a pretty cool album. The synths on it are really interesting. John Dwyer. Back at it again with some gooey, nice reverberish, trebly synth here popping out in the mix. Really aesthetically pleasing album here. Looks like something from a Goosebumps book or something. Really cool here. Got the little hand there. I guess this is just like a bunch of teenagers moshing or something at a concert. I haven't actually seen this for a while. Yeah, it's just black. It's a black record. Definitely in my top 10 for OC's albums. Although there's like almost 30 of them. Next up on the list of Vinyl I own, Float Along, Fill Your Lungs by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Again, one of my favorite bands that are currently out today. This one was a pretty good album. I'm Not a Man Unless I'm a Woman. Again, they're back at it with Stu McKenzie doing that pretty interesting panning of instruments on each channel in the left and right. Very trebly album as usual. A more jammy album. It wasn't my favorite, but it's definitely up there. I don't find myself listening to it too much, but I'll have to go back to it and listen to it more. Right off the bat, you can see the title, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard with Mild High Club. I really like Mild High Club as a separate band. This guy right here, Alex Britton, frontman of Mild High Club, he makes all the music. They did a collab album, and the record in here is actually pretty cool. It's a splatter disc. Not a I keep calling it a fucking disc. nice. This is actually in my top 3 of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard albums. A lot of people liked it and didn't like it. I really love this album. A very jazzy, very cartoony connotation to the music. It's caked in animal sounds. There's a lot going on in this album, and as always, King Gizzard delivers with that very vibrant and lush melodies and very playful album with some really good percussion on it. The drums are always crispy as usual. Next up, we have Bon Voyage by Melody's Echo Chamber. This is, I believe, her second album after her self-titled debut, produced by Kevin Parker. It's just a black album, but it's even got some of the cover art plastered on the front of it. You can kind of see where they messed up a bit trimming it, but usually vinyl have those flaws. I really dig the artwork. The color scheme is really nice. Pretty cool art on it. As far as the music goes, very funky. She had more of like she kind of took what she had previously done in her last album, which is, just your typical guitar-driven psychedelia with phaser pedals and whatnot, and just a lot of reverb, and, incorporated like some kind of poppy, just conglomeration of newer 60s and electronic psychedelia. Very experimental. I think there's even some beatboxing in here and some anime samples at one point. It's a pretty cool album. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Infest the Rat's Nest by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Yeah, as you can see, all of the band members are being incinerated in the gatefold right here. Looks pretty cool. Even I really like the color scheme. It goes well with it, just that dark red and the font they use. This kind of came out around the same time that Face Stabber by the OCs did, and a lot of people were just like, I wonder if they were kind of inspired by each other. I could see it, but if this was one of King Gizzard's first attempts at like a metal album, it has definitely some, especially Mars for the Rich, it has some like Metallica sounding riffs from like their earlier albums like Kill Them All. Very trebly, very distorted guitars on here. And they have their elements of psychedelia in there too. I didn't expect King Gizzard to step away from that. They definitely delivered in this album. At first, I did not like this album, and it grew on me very heavily. I listened to it frequently, more than ever actually. And who could forget just the album that typically gets everybody into King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, I'm in Your Mind Fuzz. This is just a fantastic album. It is great. I have no complaints about this album. It's definitely a 10 out of 10 for me. Very good garage rock psychedelic record. Very wacky. Very just that signature King Gizzard style. I can't describe it, but I'll just say it's gooey. It's a very gooey record. Very gooey, very kind lo-fi, like 80s old stereo sound to it. It's very nice. I love this album. And you guessed it, more King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, Nonagon Infinity opens the door. This was a very great album for the time. I just remember, seeing the face paint that Stu was wearing in the Gamma Knife video, and I was just like, wow, man, this is some very, really interesting psych rock they're putting out. It really got me into the whole lore of King Gizzard's Gizverse theory shit that people were posting about. What I really love about this is one of my favorite artwork on any album. Just wow, look at the record on that. It's amazing. I don't want to scratch it up too much. I'm trying to hold my camera and push it in. Next up, we got Revolver. Man, I remember not really caring for the Beatles, but then after I took a dive into 60s and 70s inspired bands, today's bands like Temples and shit and Tame Impala, I came back listening to older music and I really got into the Beatles. I definitely see the hype. This is a pretty good record. It's just very interesting. The artwork is pretty cool. You got some good songs on here. Eleanor Rigby, The Taxman, one of my favorite Beatles songs, honestly. Here, There, and Everywhere, such a beautiful song. You got Yellow Submarine, you got it all on here. It's a pretty good album. I actually enjoyed some of John Lennon's solo work, honestly. Like Plastic Ono Band. Really like their percussion too. Very strong drums, very, very compressed and very dry. Now we have Teenage Gizzard by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I actually haven't listened to this album enough, but the artwork on it is absolutely cool. Here's the back of it. I mean, man, what a cool looking record. It even sounds good too. Honestly, I just haven't listened to it enough. I'm gonna have to listen to it. Next up, we have Joy by Tycical and White Fence. This was a pretty enjoyable album too. Tycical and White Fence himself, I mean, he makes pretty good music. The back is cool. It's just silver on one side, yellow on the other. Yeah, pretty good album. Then we have Unknown Mortal Orchestra, album 2. Man, this is one of my favorite albums of all time. This guy, Ruben Nielsen, he just makes phenomenal pop songs and psychedelia. Man, From the Sun has to be one of my favorite guitar progressions of all time. This guy comes up with shit I can never think of playing on guitar. It just sounds so melodic. The mix is so, it's obviously lo-fi on this album. A lot of catchy grooves. It's its own thing. It's just, I've yet to find another band like Unknown Mortal Orchestra. If you haven't heard them, definitely check them out. Here we have Unknown Mortal Orchestra's first album. Man, Funny Friends really got me into, the song Funny Friends really got me into Unknown Mortal Orchestra. Just even the artwork on this album is just wonky, wacky. I don't know, there's just something just very, alien about this image. I know it's some kind of architecture, and I think Russia. I could be this one's just filled with some pretty cool poppy, lo-fi, guitar-driven 60s style psychedelia on here. Just the textures on this album are really cool. Next we have Hot Motion by Temples. The record's actually pretty cool within itself. This wasn't my favorite album by Temples, but it's still nonetheless a pretty great psychedelic rock album. I was more of a Sun Structures guy. Next up, Ty Segall's Melted. Classic psychedelic garage rock here. It sounds like someone huffed a bunch of carpet cleaner and made a psych record. It's a pretty wacky album. A pretty goofy, wacky, wonky, bonky, donkey. This is just this image alone, man. I used to have a shirt with this on it. I love it, man. I love Ty Segall's art style. It's really cool. I think it's like a paper mache mask or something. I don't know what the fuck it is, but it's really cool. We've got Of Montreal, Innocence Reaches. It's got a nice gatefold on it. Really interesting artwork here. I'm a huge fan of Montreal. I really like Kevin Barnes' music. Pretty good psych pop record. Very, not for everyone, but he has a lot going on in his music, and I like it.